Hello, hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome once again to another session of the DevOps strategy room. And I told you before, one of the reasons I started this webinar was because I had so many questions. What is one decision you would do differently if you started building your DevRel career from the scratch? And today it's kind of taking a little bit of twist because I figured I'd like to see more theory and more hands on deck. And so today we're going to be talking about what it actually takes to move from it works on my system to something that actually works truly in production or is production ready rather. And more importantly, how is AI starting to shape that process for a lot of engineers today? And joining me today is Tarak, co-founder of Infra Codebase, and we'll be walking through the entire scenario together. Hi, Tarak. Thank you for
Uh,
joining us.
Thank you so much for today's session. You know that I appreciate you a lot. So let's deep dive. Let's do something without slides, directly building Azure, then going from Azure to AWS to GCP, like I was saying to our friend here, Anita. The goal is less about the architecture itself, but more about the flexibility of the mind. One of the reasons that I think it was very important to talk about this topic is like my goal with Build with Her and my goal with Base is really, and with Anita, of course, is really to have an impact in our community. And one of the things that I observe in our cloud community actually is the fact that a lot of people focus too much on one cloud provider. But what happens if, for example, tomorrow you're looking for a company that you love? I don't know which company. It could be Apple. It could be a big company, a small company, whatever. Imagine that they're using one specific cloud provider. So you focus on Azure, and the company that you're targeting and that you would like to work at, they're only working on AWS or GCP, another cloud provider that you don't really know about it. So for me, my goal of today is like how we can use AI not as a replacement like a lot of people think about, because I never consider AI as a replacement, but more as an enabler.
Sure, sure.
So my goal is like tomorrow is less thinking about one specific cloud provider, because this is what you will see in today's session, is like how can we switch from one cloud provider to another? How can you become multi-cloud by design for you then to be able to coach, to learn how to use multiple like that tomorrow you will have the skills to apply to any companies that you want.
Sure.
So this was the talk of today and why I wanted to talk about it.
And I really like this because recently I was reading an article about system thinking. And one of the things that it mentioned is with the introduction of AI, right? So many persons are like, AI might take my job. And then I'm like, oh, if you actually understand how systems work, for instance, you know how to use Azure enough, you should be able to move from Azure to GCP with ease. That's
Yes.
basically what system thinking was trying to explain with that article, right? And I'm really happy to jump into this discussion with you today, Tarak.
Yes. So my goal is like basically here to directly go on infracode base. But the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that I want to do is like directly let's take an architecture design from Microsoft. I don't know. Yes, I can share actually my screen. So this
Yeah.
is good. And then I will share this.
All right.
Perfect. So I didn't want to build a complex big design, a complex architecture, because I don't know the skills of the people that we have today. So
Yeah.
let's stay simple. Of course, what we're able to do today, we are able to do it with more complex. So Anita, maybe we can do other sessions later on uh, let's say DR, disaster recovery, or other more complex architecture. But for
Yeah.
today's session, we can actually do that. So what we're going to do is like, for example, here, let's say that you already designed. So a lot of people are still designing on Draw.io, on Lucid, or any other tools like that. What I liked about the mindset that we have at Infracode Base as well is like, when you have teams working on design and another team working on the code, there is something that is called drift. Like, for example, if you change something on the design, but the two elements are not in sync, then there is a drift either from the design code or the code. So from the design or from the code area. So here, what we're going to do is like, we are going to save this image. So we are going to call it like that. I will keep here. And then now we go to infra code base. So for the people who don't know infra code base, I don't know if you switch. It doesn't follow me. Okay. So screen. Okay. So we will start this one. So for the people who don't know infra code base, to be honest, it's a product that we build with my co-founder Justin to help all of our communities, but we're also working with enterprise companies and mid-markets to go to use AI applied to cloud infrastructure management. So day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 1 is basically when exactly what we're going to do is like greenfield. Greenfield is you can start from a design and spec, but you don't have the code. You want to improve its design, so you can import it. Let's say you don't have a design, you don't have a code, you only have a spec. You can start from that as well. The second one is you have a GitHub repository. In the GitHub repository, what you can do, you can import it. For example, let's say you're working at the corporation, you have a code, a legacy code that another colleague of yours that is not working at the company anymore created. So you need to really first understand what is the code about. What is the code base about? So right now you can import it, and from the import, you can actually refactor, modernize it, understand the security posture, compliance, and so on. The third one is you already provision things in the cloud. So on Azure, on GCP, you need to do an asset mapping, and you need to understand like, okay, is there any security vulnerabilities, any misconfigurations? How can you change it? How can you improve the security posture of your cloud? So what we call as well CSPM. So for today's session, we are going to stay like that on the greenfield from an architecture, reference architecture from Microsoft, and we are going to design it.
Awesome.
Ready?
Yes,
Perfect.
ready. So
So,
while we're
yeah,
getting the system set up, I have one question, right?
yes.
What's the biggest difference you have seen between systems that run and systems that are actually production ready when you're talking about actual deployment?
So one of the mindset that I have on that is like, I like to use the mindset of the shift left.
Yeah.
Shift left is either before doing a pull request or creating a GitHub repository, and of course, before provisioning the infrastructure, we always need to make sure that at the code level, we are actually able to test it for code quality, for code security, understanding the costs, and so on. So like that, every time I build an infrastructure, I have in mind that it needs to be infrastructure for production. So I basically test the code, and then I push it to my GitHub repository, or I deploy it by doing a Terraform apply.
Okay.
Did I
So
answer your question?
yeah. And it just reminds me of like tools like telepresence and the Merity that often use a similar approach.
Yes. It's an approach that a lot of people know about, but to be honest, I'm still amazed that not a lot of people, either at the
Apply it.
companies, are not using it, are not applying it. So that's why you have a lot of leaked secret, for example, in your GitHub repository. But
Mhm.
for me, the GitHub or ADO, GitLab, or the Git providers is already day 2 for me. The day 1 is at the code level. And this is what we are going to work on as well. The
Awesome.
second part that I would like to talk about is mainly the challenge of AI.
Yeah.
When we think about AI, it's mainly about the context. And you see a lot of people thinking that AI is only using ChatGPT. To be honest, I will never use AI, ChatGPT to generate code. Uh, you can use it for other things, but not for code. I beg you to not do that. But it's more about how can you give the context to the AI. And what I think about context, for example, here in our
Mhm.
situation, you in a code base, you have different rule sets. So for the people who know like Azure Web Architecture Framework or AWS, for example, here, you have this one. So this one, for example, to have this rule set, it
Yeah.
was very easy. I went here on Azure Well Architecture Framework. So it's basically this one. So I encourage as well our community. It doesn't change with me. Okay, wait. Screen and
Yeah.
yes.
Share the screen.
So here it's like for the people who are not yet familiar, you have the same thing for AWS and the same thing for GCP. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a framework that, to be honest, I'm using a lot because you have, as you can see, all the pillars: reliability, security, cost optimization, operational excellence, and performance efficiency. So I would suggest people who are not very familiar with it to go and find out. But
Yeah.
for infra base, for example, this is the way we are going to consume. So right now I go back on infra base, and as you can see, I already imported the web architecture framework. So you import all of your rule set, and rule set is basically a set of rules, of course, that the AI agent will use to generate your code. The second part that we're going to do is like we have a lot of tools. So what we call tools is MCPs.
Yeah.
So here, for example, we have the MCP for obviously Terraform. We have the MCP for the Git providers like GitHub and, for example, GitLab. You have also the MCP. So everything that you see here is before even thinking about creating a workspace, you need to set up your context. Once you set up your context, then is when you can actually scale your work and the
Okay.
work of the team as well. Do you have any question on that?
Yes. So
Yes.
now there are like so many MCPs here, right? But like when you look at AWS, EKS, and then GCP, what actually changes in real time when using this in like, and what actually stays the same fundamentally when you're switching between either of them?
So it's more about, for example, on the MCP side, it's more about consuming all the logic, all the intelligence, and everything of the specific cloud provider. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say that there is a big change between the MCP directly, but obviously, if you compare AWS to GCP and to Azure, it's more difference in terms of resources, but not necessarily in terms of MCP itself.
Okay.
But here, for example, once we set up here, what we're going to do now is like we're going to create a new workspace. Like I was saying before, you have two logic. The first
Yeah.
one, I don't know if it's, this. The first one is like connect to GitHub. So it's a brown field. Is like I already have a GitHub repository. I want to import it. But in our use case, we're going to start from scratch. Here, the agent is actually going to help you set up your own workspace by asking you multiple questions. You have 3 questions here. What cloud are you building on? Obviously, today we are going to work on the 3, but we're going to start with Azure. What
Okay.
infrastructure do you want to use? So infrastructure as code, you have multiple languages, you have Terraform. I like to use it because whatever the cloud provider that you're using, you can use a common language, Terraform. But for example, if you are using Azure, then you can go to Bicep. If you are using AWS, you can go to CloudFormation. And the third one is, what do you want to build? So here, what we're going to do first is to upload the context document. So here, for example, we are going to use, okay. So it didn't take my SVG, so give me 1 minute. Here, I need to do a screenshot of what we want. So I'm going to do it. And then we're going to be good here. So give me just 1 minute. You can ask me a question in the meantime if you want.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about uploading context, and
Yes.
I'm wondering for those who are very new to infra code base and this topic in general, how do we get that context that we're uploading?
So this is what I was saying. Like context, you have the rule sets that I told you. For example, for companies, you have different rules like cost, like security. So now you can actually you can onboard all of your rules.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very specific to your own way of working.
And the application that you're building.
And the application, of course, that you're building. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And then you have the rule sets, you have the MCPs that I showed you. You can also build sub agents, but by rules and MCP, to be honest, you already have 50% of your context there. And then you add to that your spec and you add to that your picture. So for example, here, what we're going to do is like here, screen. This is perfect. And then we're going to say, I want to build an Azure API management architecture and Terraform. So here, as you can see, we already answered the question, like, what do I want to build? Do you want to start from scratch? Do you have already resources? So here we are going to say starting from scratch. And we're going to say research current best practices. So now, as you can see as well, we are going to search for the web URL that we can use, like for example, all of them. And that the AI agent is able to fetch, is able to look, and then we're going to build. And as you can see, I already found it. Here, this is what he recommended. He will set up my workspace following all of this with the Azure MCP and the security baseline and the guidelines with the rule sets. And then, of course, once we see the workspace, one thing that we can do as well is like we can add tools, we can add rule set, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, what we're going to do is that we're going to use all of these rules. Then here we already have everything pre-configured for us based on questions. Here we're going to use Terraform. And then we start the prompt. So here we can actually look at it. Terraform module structure. So we really have all the project already and the reference architecture. So now what we can do is like we can directly create the workspace and we will consume the picture as well. So as you can see, it's a big spec.
Yes.
A lot of people are thinking as well in terms of prompt, meaning, for example, they say, oh, I just wrote, for example, one sentence and the AI didn't understand. But then what I like to say is like, always look at the AI the way you will be working with a coworker.
Yeah,
The
like
more explicit, yes, the more explicit you are, the better it is.
That's so true. Like your prompts can either make or break the feedback you're getting. And I learned that the hard way.
No, but it's the case. And what you're saying maybe it's very easy to say, but not a lot of people do it. Like I do a lot of sessions and all. The community that we have is amazing. But at first it's like, okay, I'm writing a prompt and one line and then it didn't do what I wanted. Yeah, but what's the context? Do you really think that you would ask a cloud engineer to just say, build a AWS free tier architecture? No, you need to go deeper. You need to explain, for example, what are the resources that you want to use. And the more explicit you are, the more context you give and share with AI, the better it is.
True. So like off topic or it's still in line, obviously. But like do you think teams often overestimate the difference between the different cloud providers? Because I know there are teams that are very particular about what cloud provider to use, right? And now having the ability to switch between different providers at will, do you think teams are overestimating or underestimating the difference between which is which? And what's your take on that?
To be honest, so for the people who don't know me yet, I switched from my legal background, business background to cloud 5 years ago. And to be honest, when I learned, I didn't learn because it was AWS, Azure, or GCP. I learned through design. So today this is what I was saying at the beginning of our talk together. I care less if you know how to use one specific cloud provider if you are the best, but I care more about the skills that using, how can you make a living out of these skills? So I really trying to not think in terms of AWS resources and all, but like I was saying earlier, if you want to work at a company and this company is only working on Azure and your only skills is on AWS, you're stuck. So for me, I really want you to build like the flexibility to go from one cloud provider to another, thinking more about making a living and earning good money,
Okay.
instead of just thinking like, okay, it's cloud provider. Like I'm a business guy as well, so I'm always trying to put the business and how can the tech serve my own objective. So that's why here my goal is like to show you, like for example here is running commands and all, but to go from an Azure, and
Okay.
then we will build at the end. We can build it on yeah, we still have some time, so we can build it on AWS. We do the comparison AWS and Azure, and if we have more time, we can build it on GCP as well. And then we can compare the resources between AWS resources, Azure, and so on. So it's more about the flexibility on that. And
Okay.
as you can see here, is already running all of my code, writing all of my code for me, already running, for example, Terraform apply, Terraform, sorry, plan, Terraform validates. For the people who know more about it, is TFSec, Chekhov. So these are tools as well that we use, for example, to check the code quality and the code security of it. So this is what I was speaking about, the shift left mindset first.
Okay.
And then here, so we focus on generating the code. So for example, you have your main. So here as well, you see the difference, like what is interesting in a word was always understanding the current state to the previous state, for example. And now what is interesting is that we introduce that, but for AI agents. So right now, the AI agent, as you can see, is already doing like differences. If you compare the line 672, you directly see the difference. So that's why here is first started writing the code. Then you run, for example, Terraform validate. You realize that no, we need to be more strict in terms of, for example, security. And now we can actually compare the different states. And if we like it, and if we accept all the changes, then we can just write accept and all. And then here we wrote the main.tf, all the output, the providers as well that we have here. We have the README in terms of documentation. So just by doing that, instead of spending like hours writing the Terraform code line by line and all, is like our goal now is like writing the code is not a bottleneck anymore, but basically understanding the code, being able to test it. This is where I would think that we need to spend 80% of our time. Before it was the reverse. We were actually spending 20% of our time testing and 80% writing code. Now with AI, it's actually the reverse that I observe. It's like we spend 80% testing the code because I didn't need to write a line of Terraform code, for example, here, but I still need to test it. So that's why the DevSecOps mindset for me is very important as well. But it's running all the commands that we usually run as well with the Terraform FMT, with the Terraform validate, and so on. So you don't change the way you work already. And as you can see, it's already creating the design. One thing as well, that's what I was saying earlier, we really need to pay attention in terms of design, because of course, generating code with generated that like is not easy, but faster. Now it's more about the skills that you have on design.
Now I'm thinking about it, right? And for somebody who is very new to, let's say, cloud development, a junior engineer, for instance, who happens to want to build something, a production-ready system using infra code base,
Yeah.
how do you think there's going to be a time difference compared to how long it will take a senior engineer to achieve that? Because now we're talking about the time it will take to make sure that what we have is good and also test that the code base that we've been provided is effective. So like, what is the time? Do you think there'll be a significant time difference between how long it takes a junior developer or engineer to get this done, and how long it takes a senior engineer to get this done.
Like if I ask you, like, even this building this infrastructure, writing the code and all, how long will have spent? Even if you are very good, you could have spent maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 3 hours if you are very good.
Yeah.
Right now, what we started really like 10 minutes ago, already building 10 minutes ago, and we
Mm-hmm.
already created an Azure API management secure baseline with all the security, with all the context and all in 15 minutes. So you cannot compete, meaning there is no need to compete and there is no need to compare, because if I compare tech to human, to be honest, tech is faster. But it's not about competing. It's about how we are human, we can use tech as an advantage, as an enabler, because it is able to do everything here. The only reason why is because as a cloud engineer, I already know my best practices. As a cloud engineer, I already know what I need to do. I already know what I need to achieve. But by using AI, I can actually scale the way I'm doing things today. So it's not about how much time do you need in terms of comparison between human and machine, but it's more about if I combine both, how can it make me better and faster and more secure? Because also at the beginning of our journey building infrastructure base, we saw a lot of people trading um, security for speed.
Yeah.
And I think it's not good because
Terrible.
yeah, it's very terrible because
Terrible.
what you do is like you go so fast, but you don't scale your best practices. You actually scale a work. You don't take the time to test your work. And based on that, you provision the infrastructure. And then you realize, oh, it broke. Yeah, but in general, forget AI, you will never work like that. You would directly test in your IDE, for example, the code that you're working on. You will test it for, like I was saying, code quality, code security. And once it complies with all of your standard, your security, your costs, and so on, then you push it to your repo or you provision the infra. So for me, it's the same mindset, right?
True. So if you had to like remove all the tools and like start afresh with development, for instance, of this, what principles would you still retain in the process?
Security.
Very essential, especially with AI.
Yes, yes. No, because I am also I became as well a DevSecOps. So to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, this is what I realized as well is like no matter what we do, there are two skills that we really need to have. The first one is security. We need to be able to understand how we can actually test the code that we're working on. And the second one is design. Like, for example, me, if I had more time here, the thing that I would look at would be like, how can we make this design better? Like here, we have a score that we implemented, and it's a live design. Like, for example, if I hide the chat here and make it bigger, you see that the data flow, you see the secure connection. For example, here, if you want to make it a little bit like that, then you can actually improve the way you're working. So then here you see the manage identity. So it's still not a lack of AI, but like AI will give you a V1. It's like for the code. AI will give you a V1.
Yeah.
It's you as a human who go and need to challenge what AI give you. Like if I had more time, I will actually focus on making like the design better. But because we want to do like other cloud providers, we can have it. One thing is like I want this design to be more horizontal. So I was saying it's back and forth between AI and the human. Like it gives you V1, but you still need to continue working on the AI to make sure that the result that it gives you, you're actually happy with it. And then now we're doing that. Now we can say, okay, now I want to build the equivalent, the AWS equivalent. Do you want also to do GCP? To be honest, in the cloud, you have two major. Azure and AWS, but we can do GCP as well. Oh, it's fine. Both is fine.
Yeah, I think we can do both. And I'm curious, while switching between AWS and GCP, what are the trade-offs that you'd most likely have to
Also, you want to do GCP as well, or just AWS and Azure?
um depends on our time. If time
So,
permits. Let's
okay.
go as with the time. And
Yeah.
so like when switching between, let's say, different cloud providers, what trade-offs would you should you have in mind as an engineer? And what trade-offs aren't so obvious currently with the diagrams that we're seeing that we also have to be aware of?
For me, there is no, like I was saying before, there is no trade-off. There is more a mindset. At the end of the day, again, my answer will not be from an engineering standpoint. It will be from a job market standpoint. Like for me, like what is more important is like, are your skills actually going to help you make a living on? Because we are not learning cloud just to say we are learning cloud, right? I never cared about it. What I cared about was if I want to be one of the best cloud engineers, then yes, but to become one, I need to have a good life. So for me, I will not go into the details of what is more important in terms of AWS and Azure, because to be honest, I compare them both. What I'm able to do in terms of security, cost, and all on Azure, I'm able to do the same on AWS. But it's more flexibility. And I know that a lot of people first learn on one cloud provider before switching to the other. But today we are not in a recession, but today we are in a more challenging environment, I would say. So your goal is not to learn cloud for the beauty of cloud. The goal is to learn cloud to make a good living for yourself. It's the most important for me. But
Very
of
true.
course, you could have a different answer. Like, what would be your answer?
A lot of persons often look at the cost. I know that most organizations often compare their trade-offs from the cost standpoint, which is more financially, flexible for the team. And I think cost and also security are the two things that most teams prioritize when it comes to like trade-offs between cloud providers.
But why trade-off? This is what is important because trade-off means, for me, is like you will think that AWS, let's say, is more secure than Azure, which is not the case because you can actually have, to be honest, for me, they are kind of equivalent. What you can, like, they are major companies here. They are not like startup. They are major companies. So what you can do on AWS in terms of security, I do believe you can do that on Azure as well. Same thing from the Azure standpoint. So for me, it's really depending on the context you are living in, the organization you're working at. If the organization is working only on Azure, obviously, don't go and work on AWS. Think about the context you're living in. Same thing, if your organization is only working on AWS, don't think about working on Azure. First, think of being the best for your company to generate value for them, to keep your job and to grow within the organization. And after that, when you want to change, look
Yeah.
at the company you want, target it, look at the cloud providers that they're using. Very simple is like look at their job description. If I tell you you are looking at AWS and you're only working on Azure, go and train. But I always do that in terms of what do I want to achieve and how can tech help me achieve.
Okay. So I'm thinking, right? And we have been able to achieve all this in a matter of minutes,
Yes,
something that would have taken days.
yes.
Days, ideally, right? And so now I'm curious, what is something that you think AI is surprisingly better off in terms of like cloud workflows compared to the typical engineering rate?
The speed of execution.
Hmm, it's so
It
true.
it could be your worst nightmare to actually use AI if you don't have the right structure, because at the end of the day, it's not about a tool. It's not about tech. It's about your process.
Yeah.
If you don't have, let's say, all of your context, all of your rule set, all of your context of your organization, then no matter what tool you're using, you're going to scale based on bad practices.
Yes.
So AI could actually become your worst nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
or it could actually become your dream. Because right now what I'm doing is that I know how to scale my work because I already know like what I want to achieve, how can I achieve it, the security in this. So I already know that I can scale what I'm doing. But if I wouldn't know, I wouldn't use AI today. And I
Okay.
see a lot of people in our community as well learning cloud using infra code base. So using AI as a mentor. Because if you ask me 10 times the same question, at the end of the day, I will become very tired and I will tell you, okay, stop asking me the same question. It means I already answered to you 9 times out of 10. If you ask me the same question 10 times, it means you didn't understand. I cannot do anything for you. But AI will not do that. I have patience. AI can actually tell you like, okay, you asked me a question. It's not going to tell you I already answered. So
I
it has
believe
more questions than a human.
Yeah, I believe that's what Infracode University is trying to achieve, right?
Yes. Infracode-based university, to be very honest with you, it's like coming from two things. The first one is like I see a lot of companies trying to sell things like
Mhm.
learning experience and all. And to be honest, I always believed that either you make it accessible to people or you make it free. But for me, for example, for Infracode Base today in university, it is free. My goal is like, how can we help as a company not only to generate millions of dollars, but also to be able to help all of our cloud community learn.
Yeah.
And for me, education should be accessible. This is the reason that I work so hard on making sure that infra-based university is actually a university that people can train on. Is
Hmm.
not only learning slides or watching videos. Yes, you can do that, but you need to understand, and I needed to do it in a way that was taking into account AI. And not AI ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is great, but is not for me really pure. It's like how we can use AI applied to cloud infrastructure management. So yeah.
Interesting. And I am curious, right? If someone has zero to no knowledge, background knowledge on cloud, does the learning also, is the learning still equivalent to, can they also catch up with the knowledge from just interacting with AI?
Yes. Because you can challenge all the assumption. You can ask questions, like for example, you can ask the AI if you
Hmm.
don't understand something here.
Oh, this looks
If you,
better.
yeah, no, it's still working on it, but and yeah, um, you can challenge the assumption. You can actually ask why. And for example, here one thing that I observed as well is like here he only focus on the Azure, on the AWS, but where is the Azure? So here I will say okay, um, and I speak to the AI the way I will speak to a human. I don't see the Azure architecture diagram anymore. I want to say it. So I'm speaking to AI the way I will speak to you. Like I don't see it. Can you please show it to me? That's what a lot of people say. Please, when they work on with AI and all, like they think as if they were working with a coworker.
Yeah.
So you can learn AI because you need to test. You need to challenge the assumption. And like for example here, as you can see, we have the project summary as well. So for example here, and we have all of it, like all the documentation that we need to really understand what we build today. You have the README as well. And then of course here we can do, so create another folder called Azure and include all the Azure files in it. Also, create a project summary for both cloud providers. So you can continue. It's not because it's done, but you can actually you're satisfied with your job. Like for example here, one day we can do another session on how to work with design and all. It's just that for now, for example, I'm not really satisfied with the result that it shows me here. I always want to improve. So here, I don't know how long we have. So here is improve with AWS architecture. It doesn't look structured. So what is interesting as well is you look at this and you need to say, okay, what's the goal of my design? To communicate an idea. But am I satisfied with it? Yes or no? If I'm not satisfied with it, then I say it. And here, I'm not. So improve with architecture design, it doesn't look structured. For example, think in terms of layers. And also add a region, US East. As you can see here, I already, I don't see the architecture diagram anymore. I want to say it. It already generated all of my code and all, but I want to continue working on it.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the work I will do with a colleague of mine. If I'm your manager and you come to me and I'm not satisfied with the work, I will ask you, okay, I'm not satisfied. I want to give you feedback, but go improve it. It's exactly the same thing as working with AI today.
Now, I see that we're moving towards a world where infrastructure can easily be AI generated, right? But I'm curious, what does that mean for cloud engineering? Because I have thoughts on, will this make systems more reliable, or will it introduce another level or layer of complexity like other cloud toolings in the past?
So like I was saying, AI is a tool. AI is a technology. AI is not supposed to think for you. I really don't like when people are saying AI is doing things for me. It's not the case. It's wrong. AI is
Yeah,
not a human is not supposed to do work for you. It's working with you.
with you.
AI is not supposed to do the work for you. It's supposed to do the work with you. Why do I not like we for and I prefer with? Is because it's a collaboration, human to machine. I'm collaborating. It doesn't mean by using AI, I forget everything that I'm doing. It's not. It's just that for me, I accept that AI is a technology. AI is not a buzzword. AI is going to stay. So either I want to work on it and I want to use it to make me better, or definitely I will be replaced. It's like some people who are still doing things manual before doing automation. Yes, I need to do things manual first, but once I see repeats, then I can scale and I bring automation. It's the same thing. AI, the difference is AI is smart. So you can use it as a mentor. And like I was speaking about it earlier, we have a lot of junior engineers in our community who are learning with infra code base, basic about use cloud computing, because I am teaching them a lot week by week, session by session and all, to make sure that at the end of the day, they understand how to use it.
Okay. Now, in a real production setting, right, how do you think this generated um code would actually hold up? And if I was a junior engineer and I decided to use this in a real production environment, what should I be worried about, or what should I be wary about?
I shouldn't be worried about anything, because the word makes me think that I'm not in control. So why should I be worried? I'm not worried about anything. It's just that if I'm worried, it means I'm not in control. So I need to understand why I'm not in control. And it's not AI fault. It's you. It's the human. If you have doubts, it's not because of the tech, it's because of yourself. It's because of your emotion as human. So
Prompt that you gave it.
it's what?
And probably the prompt that you missed.
But no, no. You can miss a prompt, yes, but like I was
Yeah.
saying earlier, prompting and the output will be V1.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can challenge the V1 to go to V2. So it's not, yes, you're right. It's about having a prompt, thinking about spec, because thinking about details. But sometimes you forget the details. Sometimes you forget, for example, the hard-coded secrets. You don't think about it. But it's just that because AI is then giving you a V1, that you say, oh, I forgot to do it. And now, yeah, we have the repository as well here. We have the README. We have the difference between Azure and AWS. We have all of the Azure code base with documentation, with the Terraform files, and so on. And we have the same thing for AWS.
That makes it very easy to switch between both.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's so cool.
And it was the logic of today. Like I was saying, it was less about this one architecture, because if we understand how to do it with one, we understand how to do it with many. So it was how to push it to the limits, how to understand how to switch from Azure to AWS, AWS to Azure, and so on. And it was less about one specific cloud provider.
Now, at what point does the adoption of multi-cloud become like a strategy for an organization versus just an accidental introduction of complexity?
So I will be very honest with you. I didn't do the talk in terms of thinking, in terms of organization. I
Yeah,
did the talk in terms of thinking for a community, with our community, because my goal is not to think for the
organization.
organization. They do whatever they want. Yes, I cannot change anything about it, but definitely my goal here with you was to, um, for me, we don't learn tech just to say we learn tech. We learn tech to get an outcome. And the
Sure.
outcome that I'm always thinking is how can we help as an organization of a code base to help people make a living. So for me, it's less about the organization, what they think is disaster recovery, for example. But this as well could be challenged because disaster recovery doesn't mean multi-cloud. Disaster recovery, for example, it means like you have your resources in one region, let's say US, but you have resources in Europe, for example. So if one region gets down, then you have a redundancy model. So I don't need to do multi-cloud to do it. My thinking was more about the people are thinking about one cloud provider and sticking to one cloud provider. Why? Why do you do it? If you only do it just to say I'm an expert, yeah, but why? Why do you need to be an expert on one cloud provider? Do you earn more money, or you want to change jobs? Do you only want to focus on the job that are already working on this specific cloud, or not? Because, for example, I want to work at Apple tomorrow, let's say, but Apple is only working on Azure. I work on AWS. I cannot. No one will consider me from Apple. But because I can actually understand how to use AI to go from one cloud provider to another, then I can be better than another engineer that is still doing manual things. Right now, I could be better than another engineer just because I'm faster and because I have the security in mind. So I did it more in terms of community than in terms of organization. I think I didn't get your question. Mhm. So this is very interesting what you're saying because if it's breaking, it means it's in prod, meaning it's CI/CD, meaning it has nothing to do with infra code base. So we didn't want to build a CI/CD engine because we do believe that CI/CD is already big. We have a lot of you have a lot of actors. You have GitHub Action. You have a lot of actors. You wouldn't compete with them. But the missing point was more on the left side. So I wouldn't look at the issue at the infra code base side. I would look at what happened post it. Of course, I could look. I could. And one more important thing today, the flow is this: you have a GitHub repository, you import it. You have a cloud provider, you import it. Like you scan your subscription. You start from day one, then you build it like the one that we're building now. But after, we don't change the way you're working. It's like if you're used to then pushing from, let's say, your code editor to GitHub repository to your GitHub, do it. Like here, for example, one thing when we're done, you can actually select your GitHub accounts and then you push it to GitHub. And once you push it to GitHub, then you have your CI/CD pipeline. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel once more. We wanted to offer a better way, a more strategic way for people to leverage AI to become better, faster, and more secure as well. Yes, it's over engineer or over prepared. It's again, it's not a tool issue, it's or a tech issue, it's a process issue. It's how do you handle things on your own, how do you structure yourself? And if you're not structured, AI cannot save you. Like that's why I was saying AI cannot think for you. AI can think with you. But the goal is like, first, don't think about tech, think about your own process. Structure the way you work. Once you structure the way you work, use tech to scale the way you work. But don't do the other way around. Think about tech first and then scaling. It doesn't work. But I think, yeah, I will need to drop in a few minutes. I have event, but was it useful? Yeah, yes. I cannot bet in a few years. There is something that the past 4 years taught me is like I cannot bet in the like 4 years or 5 years ago we didn't even know the power of AI. AI was not what AI was ChatGPT. We didn't know or we didn't know what we were able to do 5 years ago. So 5 years later, like from now to 5 years, like 31, like 2031, uh, I don't know. And I like to play with forecast for the next quarter or like 2 quarter in advance, but not in a few years. But yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much. I really, really, really loved it. In less than an hour, we built two, um, uh, two infrastructure. So it was amazing, to be honest. And all of your question, I loved it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And to be honest, you're a great partner. And thank you so much for today. Bye. Thank you. Great.